I can't believe we got these seats for free at the Old Time Theater.
Looks like we've got the whole place to ourselves.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Shh, it's starting.
How is he doing that? Is it mind control?
I hope that wasn't the best part. This can't be in the movie.
Old films start with shorts instead of commercials.
To encourage the research for new concepts in community planning. Get rid of the people, you won't have to worry about all that.
Once, the land seemed inexhaustible.
It's green!
The whole vast sweep of the American continent, 3 million square miles of the richest land on Earth.
Richer than Bill
A land
Gates?
of quiet main streets, rolling farmlands, plains, forests, and mountains. A land with elbow room.
And elbow
with
grease.
unlimited space for our towns, our cities, and our people to grow. But within a single generation, we have learned a hard lesson. That the land is a limited resource. Just as the air can be polluted, water supplies wasted, so our land can be dissipated and despoiled. Today, the land surrounding our metropolitan areas is being swallowed up at the rate of 1 million acres a year.
Godzilla all over
By
again.
factories, shopping centers, highways, housing developments, and more housing developments.
That's progress for you.
How did it happen in the span of a single generation? Almost overnight, suburbia was born. 500,000 homes sprang up around the country in 1946. Nearly 1 million in 1947. 1 million in 1948. Still more in 1949, 1950.
Do I hear a
The
51?
empty farmlands, the quiet towns and villages surrounding the city found themselves in the midst of a roaring housing boom. New developments on every hand. Some well-planned, well-designed, blending naturally into the terrain. Some seem to have been thrown together in monotonous rows as the project builders raced to keep up with the demand for more and more homes. So perhaps it is time to pause and take stock, to look ahead to the needs of the future, to consider new approaches to the use of our land, perhaps to re-examine some discarded concepts.
Hey, I can make it disappear.
Don't ever, ever do that again. This is not good for my epilepsy.
Gin and company. Well, you supply the gin, I'll keep you company. Straight ahead 3 miles. Left turn here. Right turn here. Left turn here. Wait a minute. Where's the Burma shave?
Today, a family can buy an influential home. But tomorrow, when the last house is sold and the salesmen go on to the next track, the influential home will settle down as just one more part of the vast urban sprawl.
Suburbia, the final frontier.
2/3 of the people in our country now live in a metropolitan area. Mostly the growth is out here in the suburbs. There are many good things about living in this new world.
It looks like a prison
It has
yard.
given millions of families pleasant, well-planned homes, a place to have a garden with light and air
Oh
and
look,
space.
they're mowing AstroTurf.
But because so many families needed homes so fast, our metropolitan areas have spread without plan. The growth of suburbs has brought another major problem: getting there and back.
There and back again,
Without
a suburban
cars,
town.
suburbia wouldn't be possible. But once we live in suburbia, even where there are trains and buses serving the suburbs, most people have to depend on cars. This new suburban way of living has brought personal problems, too.
Like turning into Stepford wives.
Unless the woman of the family works or has a second car, she is often stuck in the neighborhood. Suburban neighborhoods are fine for growing children.
Use plenty of water and weed often.
but adults often find they miss the stimulation of the central city.
Such as noise, drugs, and high crime rates.
This is where 2/3 of us have chosen to live.
Unless you're born there and poor.
Do we have the will to remake the city into a place that will enrich our lives?
That looks like my motherboard.
Fine. Yes, I'd love to.
If you'd like to make a call, please hang up and
Thanks,
try
Jean.
again.
I'll be there.
If you need help,
2
hang
o'clock.
up and then dial your operator.
Goodbye. You know, 3 weeks ago, I couldn't have accepted that invitation. Like so many people these days, we live in the suburbs, and Dave needs the car every day for business.
Life is so hard.
When he was gone, I was practically a prisoner in my own home. I couldn't get out to see my friends, couldn't take part in PTA activities. I couldn't even shop when I wanted to. I had to wait till Thursday night after Dave brought the car home. But that's all changed now.
Now he rides the bike and she drives the car.
3 weeks ago, we bought another Ford.
Right.
The new, low-priced, custom-line Victoria. Isn't it stunning? Dave has it all to himself. And I now have the ranch wagon all to myself.
It's a hearse.
It's a whole new way of life. Now I'm free to go anywhere, do anything, see anybody anytime I want to. It's only good common sense. Why be stuck with one expensive car when you can enjoy all the fun and freedom of 2 fine Fords?
Today, more and more families are finding out how easy it is to become 2 Ford families. You can choose from 20 different models, colors galore, and each available with Thunderbird power, with styling inspired by the famous Ford Thunderbird, and each with the extra protection of Ford's Lifeguard design. See your Ford dealers soon.
With 15 miles to the gallon, Ford should be found on road dead.
Now I'm very pleased to
Look,
introduce
they
to you one
colorized
of
the
the
old
leading
film.
thinkers on this issue, Richard Heinberg. Also joining us is the Canadian filmmaker responsible for End of Suburbia, Gregory Green.
And
Thank you for
former
joining us.
Jeopardy contestant.
I want to start with you, Richard, and ask you just to lay out very simply, how is it that our American dream, which I always thought was sort of supposed to be connected to the Constitution or something like that, get to be so connected with suburban living and consumerism?
Merchandising.
We couldn't have suburbia if we didn't have the automobile, and we couldn't have the automobile without cheap oil. It's no accident that the suburban way of life was pioneered here in the United States, that also was the place, the birthplace of the oil industry.
Oil.
Well, see, and I have to ask you, Greg, I mean, what about the consumerist part of it? I mean, End of Suburbia opens with these pictures going through the decades of, hey, we're living the American dream, we're going to the mall.
Penny's got to sell.
That's
Let's
become
go.
the American dream. The American dream used to be based on the pioneer spirit, that you can create something that's inclusive, that is of your own hands, of your community, of you as an individual. And the age of cheap energy, of petroleum, changed that. It made us essentially dependent, addicted to this very cheap, very dense form of energy.
We became consumers, didn't we?
We moved from being citizens to consumers.
We should have realized from the very beginning that building a whole society around something that was going to run out over a fairly short period of time, just a century or two, was not a very good idea.
Oh, short-term thinking. Short-term thinking seems like our politics is, and policies driven by that.
I was always interested in environmental issues and green and sustainability issues. But when I started learning about peak oil and reading Richard's books in 2003, it shifted everything, because climate change is focused on reducing demand. We have to reduce demand for fossil fuels. We have to institute carbon taxes. We have to shift away. What peak oil says is that oil production follows a bell curve, and we're at the top of the bell curve. We're about to start going on that downward side of it, and that's going to mean that there's going to be less demand. And that changes the equation for how we deal with sustainability, because our economy is based on carbon fuels.
But when you say the economy is based on carbon fuels, and I have to go back to you, Richard, most Americans conceptualize
You didn't fill the
this
car
as,
up
look,
with gas.
I'm driving my car, oops, I'm out of gas.
I thought you were doing it.
Well, food is something we all need on a daily basis. The average food store has food on the shelves that'll last maybe 3 days, unless it's replenished with more food that's carried there on an 18-wheeler from who knows where.
And this whole trucking system fueled by
Diesel fuel.
diesel fuel.
Like
Right.
me.
So for every calorie of food energy that we produce, we have to invest about 10 calories of fossil fuel energy.
I don't understand why we haven't heard about this and, you know, open the newspaper, turn on the news. You never hear about it.
Censorship.
Right. Well, it's implicit in everything we do, and we've all grown up as a part of this fabric of the fossil fuel way of life, so we take it for granted. This is just how normal people live, and in fact, we're expecting that people in the less industrialized countries of the world are going to emulate us and learn how to live the same way.
We are bored.
And they have.
We will be assimilated.
Well, China.
They're
Look at
trying to.
India.
Yeah.
You know, in the geopolitics, looks like oil, as you wrote, Richard, oil will be the defining, at least the fight for the remaining of it,
Sure.
define geopolitics for some
Yeah.
time to come. I got to ask you, Greg, why is it that we can't just, you know, create some kind of solar car or some kind of new invention and get us out of this mess? Can't we do that?
We can do that, and we're going to do that.
Whenever
But,
that day happens.
Because we've waited.
Is it going to be enough? I guess is my question.
It's not going to be enough, partially because we've waited so long to do this. We should have learned in the 1970s that there's an end to the fossil fuel story. There are limitations. We did not learn that in Canada or the United States. The price of oil went down, the size of cars increased. We saw in the 90s that people actually started buying cars that were less fuel efficient than they bought in the 1970s. So because we've waited so long.
You hear what he's saying, Martha? You're getting a solar panel.
The peak oil event is it's cascading through the economy and is going to be causing more economic hardship. So how do you buy a solar car, let alone develop it, if you're in a 10-year or 20-year or a permanent economic depression?
This program is brought to you by Link TV
Hey,
for
I was
educational
watching that.
and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs.
That's it. I'm mad. I want my money back. We watched 2 shorts, a commercial, and a newsreel, and that's it?
Well, it's not like you paid for it. So oil made suburbia, and when it runs out, we're all doomed.
That's like saying the planet's ecosystem was ruined when the Valdez went down.
What does coffee have to do with oil?
No, the oil tanker crashed, not Juan Valdez.
What? I'm out of here.
Weren't we out of gas?